She clenched her fists so hard her nails bit into her palms, but she didn't make a sound. Standing on the threshold of the old house, Evelyn Davis watched as her niece, the very woman who'd called her Aunt Lynn for 30 years, raised a champagne glass and laughed, arm in arm with the man who'd been Evelyn's husband just yesterday. The backyard was strung with fairy lights, filled with guests in pastel dresses and summer suits. Soft sunset glow, clinking glasses, gentle music, it all felt cursed. Wrong. Because this was the very house where her mother had died alone exactly 1 year ago. This was the living room behind those glass doors where Grandma Ruth had lain cold and silent, eyes closed, a crumpled note in her hand. And this garden now filled with dancing and champagne, was where revenge had quietly begun. Evelyn exhaled slowly. She hadn't come to cause a scene. She'd come to finish what she started a year ago. Evelyn had always prided herself on emotional control. At 62, she'd survived divorce, the death of her daughter, and her sister's betrayal, all without tears, tantrums, or public breakdowns. She simply retreated into silence, into order. That's why, when her mother died alone, forgotten by everyone except Evelyn, the only one who'd visited weekly, brought groceries, changed her sheets, read the newspaper aloud, Evelyn said nothing at the funeral. Not even when her sister Claire, Sarah's mother, announced loudly at the wake. Well, Ruth was always odd. Shame no one could stand living with her. Except maybe Evelyn? Though, who knows her real motives? Evelyn just nodded, smiled, poured herself water. But that night, back in her modest home on the outskirts of Salt Lake City, she did something she hadn't done in decades. She shattered a teacup, the one Claire had given her for Christmas. Not out of rage. Out of realization. She'd been 60 when her daughter Emily died in a car crash. Her husband left a year later, saying he couldn't bear to look into her hollow eyes anymore. But Ruth had never tried to fix her. She'd just sat beside her. Said quietly, "You're stronger than you think, Lynn. Just remember, good deeds aren't forgotten. But neither is evil." And now Ruth was gone. All that remained was the house, old, worn, but heavy with memory. And a will. The lawyer handed it to her 2 weeks after the burial. "Your grandmother left everything to you, Mrs. Davis. The house, her savings, her antique book collection, and one request." He passed her an envelope. The word Lynn was written in a trembling but deliberate hand. She opened it alone at her kitchen table. Inside, just 3 short paragraphs. Asterisk, Dear Lynn. If you're reading this, I'm gone. Forgive me for not saying goodbye in person. I knew my time was short, my heart couldn't hold on much longer. But I'm not asking you to grieve. I'm asking you, don't forgive what shouldn't be forgiven. You know who I mean. And you know what they did. Don't stay silent. Don't let them forget. Don't let them inherit my good name. With love. Grandma Ruth asterisk. Evelyn read it 10 times. Then 10 more. On the 11th, she understood. Grandma knew. She knew that her favorite niece, Sarah, Claire's daughter, had spent years siphoning money from her under the guise of investments. She knew Claire had pressured her into signing a power of attorney, just to simplify things, but really to transfer accounts into her own name. She knew that in her final months, when she'd begged for help, they'd left her alone. And only Evelyn had come. Because Sarah was too busy. Because Claire was on vacation. Because no one wanted the burden of an old woman. But Ruth wasn't weak. She was waiting. Waiting for her last hope, Evelyn, to arrive. And she didn't just leave her a house. She left her a sword. Evelyn wasn't a lawyer. But she'd been an accountant for 20 years at a small firm in Ogden. She knew how to read documents. She found every bank statement. Every call log. Every copy of that power of attorney. Especially the one signed 2 months before Ruth's death, when she could barely sit up. The signature looked shaky, yet oddly steady. Too confident. As if someone had guided her hand. She didn't go to court. She didn't scream. She began to play. First, silence. To every call from Claire, she replied politely. "Yes, of course, come to the house. Don't forget the shed key." "No, I won't sell it. It's memory." Yes, Sarah can use the guest room if she visits. They believed her. They thought Evelyn was still quiet Lynn, easy to manipulate. Then it started. Sarah suddenly lost her job at the travel agency. An anonymous letter to HR accused her of forging bookings. Claire discovered her credit ruined. Someone had taken out microloans in her name and defaulted. Their joint bank account, the one Ruth had invested into, was frozen over suspected money laundering. But the most devastating move was what Evelyn did with the house. She didn't sell it. She gave it away. On her 62nd birthday, in a private ceremony with no press, no guests, she invited a lawyer and a representative from a local shelter for elderly women. And she transferred the house to the Care for Seniors Foundation. With one condition. As long as Claire or Sarah Douglas are alive, they are forbidden to set foot on this property. Not for tours. Not for memories. Not for anything. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. That's unusual. And legally very hard to challenge. Evelyn smiled. That's exactly why Grandma chose me. Of course, they didn't surrender. Sarah showed up at Evelyn's door a week later, tearful, wearing an expensive coat. Aunt Lynn, I'm so sorry. I was foolish. We only wanted to help Grandma. We thought you weren't around. You know how Mom worried. Evelyn opened the door. I know how Claire worried when she cashed that $15,000 check from Grandma's account. And how you, Sarah, spent it on Vegas hotels while Grandma lay in bed with bedsores. Sarah paled. How do you? I know everything. And I'm not your aunt. I'm your reckoning. Sarah left. Then called. Then came back. Then started threatening. You had no right. It was our inheritance. We're family. Family doesn't abandon an old woman to die alone, Evelyn replied. Family doesn't steal her last savings and call it investment. You're not family. You're a parasite. So they sued. Claire filed a lawsuit claiming Ruth was mentally incompetent and that Evelyn took advantage of her frailty. Evelyn walked into the first hearing with a folder. Inside, call recordings. Security footage. Ruth, frail as she was, had installed cameras a week before she died, just in case, Evelyn would later say. And a letter from Ruth's neurologist confirming she'd been mentally sound 1 month before her death. The judge dismissed the case. But revenge isn't just justice. It's symbolism. And Evelyn knew exactly how to deliver it. That's why she now stands at the edge of the garden, watching her ex-husband Mark kiss Sarah beneath twinkling lights. They haven't noticed her. Because they think she's broken. That she's the past. That she's a ghost. But Evelyn isn't a ghost. She's a verdict. She takes a step forward. Then another. Guests turn. The music fades. Sarah sees her first. Her face drains of color. You, what are you doing here? Evelyn stops 3 feet away. Pulls an envelope from her purse. I came to deliver what I should have handed you a year ago. She offers it to Sarah. It's a copy of the will. The originals with the notary. But there's an addendum. One the court never saw. Because it was sealed until today. The day you chose to throw your engagement party in the house you stole from a dead woman. Sarah opens it with trembling hands. Reads. Goes ghost white. The addendum states, if Claire or Sarah Douglas contest my will, all assets shall be transferred to the Utah Foundation for Victims of Familial Emotional Abuse. Additionally, all bank accounts receiving my funds shall undergo full forensic audit. Any evidence of fraud will be submitted to Utah law enforcement. Evelyn looks at Sarah. They received the file this morning. Your mother's at home. She'll be arrested tomorrow. And you're under investigation. Oh, and Mark? He signed some of those documents for you, didn't he? Mark steps back. Evelyn, wait. I didn't know. Of course you didn't, she says with a quiet smile. You just kissed a woman who lied to a dying grandmother. Who left her to rot. Who stole not just money, but her dignity. She turns. Walks toward the gate. Behind her screams. Panic. Confused guests. But she walks. Calm. Proud. Just as her grandmother taught her. A week later, Evelyn sits on a park bench. A cup of coffee in hand. Beside her, a woman in her 60s, glasses, kind eyes. Thank you for giving us the house, she says. We've already welcomed 3 women, all from families that loved them until they became inconvenient. Evelyn nods. Grandma wanted it to be a place where no one is betrayed. She pulls a letter from her bag, not from Ruth. From her daughter, Emily. The one she's kept all these years. It contains only one sentence. Mom, don't lose yourself. Even if the world turns cruel, stay kind, but never weak. Evelyn folds the letter. Smiles. She had been kind. Now she was strong. And that was enough.